We play a little game here called Three Quick Things.
I'm so glad I got it right this time.
I know. Look at you. It only took you a year. And we each ask you a question, and then we ask everyone the same question. And I just think that I'm actually just really excited to have this conversation with you. I'm really chomping at the bit for this case. But go ahead and give Sarah your first question, Rabia.
Oh, okay. My first question. I mean, Sarah, you are so steeped in crime constantly. And not just crime, but also, I mean, you write mystery fiction. So you like mysteries and all of that too. What I want to know is if there is one unsolved case that you wish you could solve or would be solved, what would it be and why?
Good one.
You hate that question. Why are you asking Sarah the question?
I don't hate that question.
You know, so I'm from Canada, and as a result, a lot of the unsolved cases that I immediately think of, your listeners might not be aware of. But there was a little girl named Nicole Morin who disappeared in Toronto in 1985. And I think she would have been 7, which would have made her about a year older than I am now. And she was supposed to go to the pool in her apartment building. She took the elevator by herself because this is the 80s and kids did that then. And she was never seen again. So it just was like so haunting of, well, did she run into someone? Did she even get in the elevator? Did she go to the pool? Like, what happened here? And it was just, you know, there were so many cases like this. Obviously, another one would have been the Eton Pates case that I learned about a little bit later after it happened, but that to me was a very formative one. And just unsolved cases in general are not ones that I often work on for my own work, just because when you don't know something, it also means that there's a lot that law enforcement can't tell you, a lot of documents and materials that you'll never have access to because it's considered an open case. But then it also gets into the question of, you know, did law enforcement actually do everything that they were supposed to do? Did they mess it up? Did they have a viable suspect that we just can't know about because they can't prove it? But these are questions that as a kid would never have entered my mind. I just thought, oh my God, it's a missing girl. And these are the kind of cases, and, you know, you personify a little bit even as a kid.
I used to think about this a lot, and I don't know what it was that inspired this. Like 4 or 5 years ago, something happened, and I don't know if I heard a story or something, but for like months, I obsessed about. I got really scared to send my kids anywhere, like in a hotel, because I'm like, they could be disappeared into a hotel and an apartment. You know what I mean? Like those kinds of space. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of possibilities of where these kids, a child, could be disappeared into, and also the police maybe not having any. I don't know, and depending on the jurisdiction, having the right to go into and search about room by room in every one. And I don't know, it's always been such a nightmare. And I didn't realize that there was like an actual case like this.
I'm sure this isn't the only case. Yeah, it's just the one that first came to mind.
Yeah, yeah. Well, were you aware of it when you were 6 years old?
Maybe not 6, but definitely by 8 or 9. Because I was at that point when, you know, my childhood true crime obsession really started to take hold. And I would look at, you know, missing persons flyers, not so much from like NCMEC because that wasn't available in Canada, but Child Find and local law enforcement. Wow. So you'd go into public spaces and they'd have the big missing kids photos, and that made an impression.
My question for you, Sarah, is was a two-parter. What is your guilty pleasure food, and what is your guilty pleasure entertainment consumption? And also, did you read all those books behind you? Because I feel like you're showing off.
I'm going to answer the last question first, which is, if it's on my shelf, I read it.
Dang it, that's a lot of books.
Nice.
Well,
very impressive.
You know, it's like 25, however many years of reading, and I really try hard to only keep the books that I think I want to keep, and I have to read them. And I've now reached a point of one book in, one book out. Because I'm in a New York apartment. Like, there's only so much space that I'm working with here. And I don't want it to become.
And I see you've got them like stacked a couple rows deep.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. When you guys see this on YouTube, you will see this is a show off wall. I like it. I like it a lot. What is your guilty pleasure food? What if you're having a really bad day? Do you treat yourself to? And then just fry your brain entertainment.
Oh, I would have to say the guilty pleasure, even though I will allow it, even though I don't usually use the term guilty pleasure because it's just pleasure, but supermarket sushi. Like sometimes I just don't feel like dealing with cooking. It happened yesterday. I was hanging out with a friend and it ran late enough where I was like, oh shit, it's 8:30 and I need to eat. And I just couldn't think about what was in my fridge. I'd only just gotten back from California the day before. And I thought, well, I'll pick up some supermarket sushi. It's, you know, I don't know how reliable it is, but it was protein and it was quick.
Listen, we lived through the 80s. We're fine.
Yeah.
Everybody's fine. And Sarah, thank you for saying that. That's such a great point. Guilty pleasure. You shouldn't feel guilty. Like yesterday I said I ordered French fries from McDonald's.
Yeah. Today I was like, why aren't you? We got some from McDonald's. I got some nuggets. And
sometimes you just want fries or nuggets. Like,
I said, why didn't you get anything? She's like, I had fries yesterday. I didn't respond because I'm like, that was yesterday, man.
I know, but that's actually thank you for bringing that lesson. It's just a pleasure. You don't have to feel guilty about it. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I like that. I'm taking that with me.
Okay, so we did get the guilty pleasure food, and now I'm forgetting what the other one was.
Like in entertainment consumption, like, you know, a Real Housewives, something that you're just like
junk food for your brain.
Junk food for your brain. Yeah.
Okay, so that would be certain 90s music artists from Canada who are the kind of people that I would listen to on the Hard Rock radio station as I was driving. So like Tom Cochrane's Life is a Highway, stuff like that.
I didn't know there were other musicians out of Canada besides Alanis. That is
I have an Alanis story. She's from my hometown. And she was always viewed as the big star as a teen. She was on a show called You Can't Do That on Television. And that's how she became well known.
Yes, I loved that show.
And then she did teen pop. So every now and then I like to shock people and send the music videos from her teen days of never too hot, never too cold, to give your best shot, too hot to hold. Look it up. It's very funny.
I used to love You Can't Do That on Television.
It was a great show.
It was a great show. No, Canada's gave us Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy. Isn't Martin Short Canadian too?
Yes, but he was on SCTV, so that counts.
Okay, yeah, that does count. And I love that. That's amazing. You need to give us on our Facebook group. You need to give us a Sarah 90s Canadian Spotify playlist and tell us all of your favorite songs. That would be so fun.
I will.
Our third question, and I think, I mean, like you actually kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want to dig a little deeper. What is kind of your origin story, your connection to with your connection to true crime?
You know, I've had that question before, and I've given different answers. I have the serious answer, which is, you know, missing kids, and also when young teenage girls were going missing and murdered, and it turned out that the serial killing couple, Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka, were responsible for their deaths. And that was a huge thing in around 93. So that was formative just because, again, they were close to my age. They were young, white, pretty. And there's the personification factor, which, of course, now we know is like a precursor to missing white woman syndrome. There was also a funny answer, which is when I was around 8, I was really heavily into baseball. And I'll give you a primer on this, which is the team that I rooted for no longer exists. They were the Montreal Expos. They got folded into the Washington Nationals. Yeah. But I love the Expos because they were the closest team to where I grew up. And at one point, we got as a family gift this big book called the Baseball Encyclopedia. And I just got a notion of I should just look up all the ways in which baseball players died. And of course, the more gruesome ones, the better. So, you know, there were the murderers. There was a family annihilator. There was somebody who, you know, fell off a cliff in mysterious circumstances. And then I started, recounting these at the dinner table. And my poor parents were just like, what are you even doing, Sarah?